Okay, I know I'm a little bit late giving my reaction to Moses Itauma versus Jermaine Franklin, but I cannot not give my reaction to that fight, that performance, that victory by Moses Itauma. Look, I am one of many who have been on the hype train for Moses Itauma for a long time. I'm not quite, going too far over to the other side that some people are doing right now, saying that he should go in there and have a fight against Alexander Usyk. We do need to kind of rein that in a little bit. It might be a little bit too soon. And to be honest, going off what Usyk said a couple of weeks ago, I don't think we're going to see that fight happen anyway. But right now, the talk around Moses Itauma becoming a world champion within the next 2 years, is that realistic? I think that is realistic, especially if Usyk ends up scattering the belts. Obviously, you got Wardley versus Dubois coming up. That's an interesting discussion in itself. And look, what happens next for Moses Itauma is a massive, massive talking point, because the only problem with Moses Itauma is we've just not seen him active enough in the past couple of years. But listen, look, we'll get into that in a minute. First, I want to quickly touch on a bit of news that came out earlier today surrounding the 154-pound division. Probably, in fact, the most stacked division in pound-for-pound boxing. Xander Zayas will be defending his WBA and WBO world titles against Jaron Boots Ennis in, I think it's June 27th. Let me have a little double check. Yeah, June 27th, Barclays Center, New York City. Massive fight for boxing fans. I don't know if it's quite a massive fight for casuals, because I don't really think any of them are necessarily superstars yet. But as a boxing fan, I think this is a very exciting fight. Again, you got two of the very best fighters at 154 pounds, and Jaron Boots Ennis, this is his opportunity now to go in there and prove how good he is, win unification at 154 pounds against one of the best fighters at 154 pounds in Xander Zayas. And it's a significant scalp, I would say. You look at Virgil Ortiz, he has a couple of good scalps on his resume now. For Boots, you can look at Stanionis. Let's be honest, him and Avanesian, who was a very washed Avanesian. But that's about it in regards to significant opponents, if you can even call them significant opponents. So yeah, very interesting fight. Very excited for this fight. I do think that Jaron Boots Ennis will get the job done and prove how good he is. And I think, could this be the moment where he can really push on and showcase himself to the casuals? Hopefully. I don't know. Problem is, I don't know how much of a star he is over in America. I'm kind of going off the assumption that I don't really think he is yet. He certainly has the potential to be. When you look at someone that's going to go on and take the mantle of being the face of boxing in the US, he is definitely one of the candidates to do so, right? So it'll be very interesting to see what Virgil Ortiz does next. Obviously, we just saw Sebastian Fundora also on the weekend beat Keith Thurman. I'm not going to really discuss that because, to be honest, Keith Thurman shouldn't have had the opportunity to fight for a world title against Fundora, and he got absolutely fucking battered in that. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Virgil go in there against Sebastian Fundora. And then all of a sudden, look, if Virgil Ortiz was to beat a Fundora, if Boots goes and beats a Xander Zayas, if we can end up getting past all the mess that's going on with Virgil and Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy, and, the complications with discussions to try and make that fight between Boots and Virgil, then you've got a fucking massive fight there. But let's get into the main part of the video, because I do want to talk about Moses Itauma. I've been on the hype train for Moses Itauma for so fucking long. I don't get why some people will still be negative and try to be too cautious with some of the things they're saying. Look, obviously the Alexander Usyk talk, let's leave that, okay? Let's leave that, because I just don't think that fight's going to happen. Would he cause Alexander Usyk problems? Yeah, I think he would, because of his feet, how quick he is, the fact he's so young, so energetic. Yes, the cardio thing is probably the only weakness we saw against Jermaine Franklin. But again, what do you expect when you've not been that active in the past couple of years? So certainly he needs to be focusing on that cardio, especially the way he boxes as well. And as he progresses, he's going to be fighting better opponents, which is going to potentially lead to longer fights. And if he's going to be gassing after the first round, which he was, and fair play, the maturity he showed to be able to pull it back in, calm down, stay composed, and then able to pick off Jermaine Franklin, which he did so. Again, the maturity, the mindset for a 21-year-old. I mean, he's fucking younger than me. And what are we doing? He's going in there starching grown men, fully grown heavyweights, experienced heavyweights. Jermaine Franklin had never been stopped in his career up until Moses Itauma. And it wasn't just a light knockout as well. I mean, he absolutely crumbled him with the uppercut and then followed it up with that jab as well. Moses Itauma, we can be excited about a fighter. And if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But I'm not going to sit back and just not get gassed about it, because When you look back at Anthony Joshua, when you look back at Tyson Fury at 21 years old, they were not as good as this. Facts. He's going to have the weight of every boxing fan hoping on the next star of the heavyweight division being him. He's going to have the weight of the United Kingdom on his shoulders. He's going to have the weight of Nigeria on his shoulders. Slovakia on his shoulders. I'm not going to sit back as a boxing fan and chill out with it. Look, I'm not going to go overboard. Like I said before, I'm not going to be talking too much about Alexander Usyk. But certainly, when you think about who's next, you've got to look at a step up from Jermaine Franklin now, surely. I mean, we don't want to just go like that. I'd say Dillian Whyte, Jermaine Franklin, probably at that, like the same sort of level, right? Especially after what we saw between the pair of them a few years ago. I mean, to be honest, Jermaine Franklin probably should have won that. And again, Jermaine Franklin went 12 rounds with, at that point, decent Dillian Whyte. Certainly a better Dillian Whyte than what we saw in against Itauma last year. Went all 12 rounds with Anthony Joshua. Made it very difficult for Anthony Joshua. Was very tough. Anthony Joshua couldn't get him out there. Anthony Joshua couldn't drop him. Goes in there against a 21-year-old Moses Itauma and gets stopped inside 5 rounds. Now, did we get any answers to the questions we had going into the fight? Obviously, the questions probably were around Moses' chin, because we've not seen anybody test his chin yet. I think there were a good few times where Franklin landed that right hand and he ate it well. But I mean, just the way he played with Franklin, I mean, his feet just don't stop moving. I think maybe that's probably why he got a bit tired. But I mean, imagine he really works and hammers in on that cardio. And he could do that for the duration of a fight, like Alexander Usyk does. Because we know Usyk is probably the only other mover in the heavyweight division that can do similar with his feet. As well as constantly feinting, constantly going upstairs and downstairs, throwing shots from weird angles. I mean, Moses is one of the only fighters I've seen since Triple G to do that kind of overhook. And so the punch variation is very much there. I mean, he's throwing shots, types of shots that a lot of other, certainly heavyweights, don't throw. And you can see the mental exhaustion in Franklin's face as well. I think that is a big part of it. People don't understand you cannot switch off against these kind of fighters. And so when you got this energetic 21-year-old constantly coming into range, out of range, you know, countering shots, feinting all different types of shots, that mental exhaustion it has on your mind. You know, we've seen it with Alexander Usyk. I mean, Anthony Joshua's come out in the past. He said people don't get the exhaustion that you have fighting someone like Alexander Usyk because you cannot switch off for all 12 rounds or up until you get stopped. And that takes its toll. You know, when you're constantly having to think, you know, because Moses Itauma, he's going to make you pay. He's got the speed, he's got the power to back up all of these skills as well. Yeah, I don't really know who's going to want to fight him in the heavyweight division now. He's too much of a risk. I think what we've learned now is that he is certainly a star. You know, the amount of fans that went out there to watch him, you know, the amount of talk on social media about Moses Itauma after that fight, even from casuals. He's going to start reaching out to the casuals now. I know he doesn't necessarily like that sort of stuff. He has openly said that he just doesn't really like being a talker. He's going to end up having to do that, though, because it's just the way it is. You know, he's going to be a big star. And, that's part of being a big star. I do like how stoic he is, though. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, who would be the top 3 options that I'd like to see him fight next? I think they're talking about him getting back out June, July or something, which is good. He needs to get, you know, as many fights under his belt this year as he can. I think they should look to get him 3 or 4 fights this year. Obviously, Bakole's fighting Yoka, so that's just not going to happen yet. You've got so many heavyweights that are scheduled in and booked in for fights. Who's not? Obviously, Cabial's not. That might be a bit of a jump up from Franklin, so probably not that one. I don't think Cabial would want to do that anyway, especially because he's got so close to competing for the WBC heavyweight world title. I just don't see him taking that fight anyway. I would say Hrgovic, you know, but he's booked in to fight Dave Allen. That was announced last week, so not Hrgovic. Bakole, Martin Bakole is a good shout. When we saw him in there against Jared Anderson at the time, by the way, Jared Anderson would be a good one, but he's booked in to fight as well. When he fought Jared Anderson, stopped him. At that point, you know, people were talking about Jared Anderson being the one with loads of potential, you know, pushing on in the heavyweight division. And I think a lot of us saw him as potentially being the next star of the heavyweight division. The boogeyman, Martin Bakole, went in there and fucked him up bad. So maybe you could put him in there against the boogeyman. I know a lot of people might not consider him the boogeyman anymore because what we saw against F.A. Ajagba and obviously getting stopped against Joseph Parker, but coming in on, what, a day's notice against Parker. I think that is a very interesting fight because I think a lot of people now know of Bakole, obviously being on that massive card against Joseph Parker. All the talk that there was for him stepping in on 1 day notice, there was a lot of talk around it. So A lot of people know about Bakole. He's a big heavyweight. Probably too big. But if Moses Itauma goes in there against him and stops him, that's a little bit of a, okay, shit, he's took out someone that could have caused a massive upset. I mean, Zhilei Zhang maybe you could consider kind of similar to that Bakole kind of mold. Again, we've not seen him in a while. We thought he was going to be fighting Daniel Dubois, but Dubois obviously bin that one off and he's going to go and compete for the heavyweight world title against Fabio Wardley. I did mention Fabio Wardley earlier because he was there, sat ringside. Obviously, we all know the complications, the fact that he trains in the same gym as Moses Itauma. How much longer can they keep going down that road? Because they're on a natural collision course to fight. Like they are. You know, they're the two names that we're all looking at to take over in the heavyweight division. Two Brits, two heavyweights. You know, two heavy hitters. You know, two very good ticket sellers now. Yeah, one of them needs to leave the gym, surely. Like, they're going to end up needing to fight. They're going to get ordered to fight. You know, there's a lot of hype around Moses Itauma right now. And these governing bodies hear the hype and they get hyped as well. So, yeah, that situation needs to get resolved because that fight cannot not happen just because they train in the same gym. I don't really see it as, oh, they're close mates like Shakur and Keyshawn Davis. I saw someone suggest Hughie Fury. I don't know. Maybe that might be interesting because, again, he's got that Fury name. He's got the same... He boxes in the same kind of profile to Tyson Fury. He's obviously nowhere near as good as Tyson Fury, but it'd be very interesting to see how Moses would do against somebody of that kind of profile, because and then you can watch it and go, and try visualize a fight between him and Tyson Fury. There's Andy Ruiz, which I think would probably be the most interesting one. Because obviously he's a big name as well. I just don't know if that would happen because all the rumours are pointing towards him going and signing with Zuffa Boxing. But I feel like they're the obvious options, no? Maybe I'm missing off a very obvious one. I don't know. Let me know down below who you think Moses Itauma should fight next. Make sure to go follow Dictate Boxing on all other social media platforms. Links are down below. Make sure to like this video. And if you're new around here, subscribe to Dictate Boxing and we will speak very soon.